Dave Williams presents Conversations.buzz.
Seems that we never hear anything about COVID these days. Not nothing. I do, on Facebook and on social media, I find an occasional reference to it. Somebody who just got it, somebody who tested positive and is really ticked off now because they can't do what they're going to do. But seriously, most people have just kind of put it in the past, I think, historically, for them personally. And yet, I was really surprised. I looked at the numbers just a couple days ago. More than 103 million new cases have been confirmed in the U.S., and more than 1,400,000 of those people have died. And these numbers were good as of 4 days ago, December 14th. Dr. Benjamin Neumann has joined me. He's with the faculty at Texas A&M Biology. He joined there in 2021 during the COVID-19 pandemic. He served on the International Committee of the Taxonomy of Viruses, which is a global study group for COVID-19. He oversaw the Texas A&M University Global Health Research Complex, which identified a variant of the virus whose full significance was unknown. Here he is. You know him, you love him, can't get enough of him. Here's Ben Neumann. Wait, that's a really old radio saying. Apologize for it. Good to see you again.
Happy to help. What can I do for you? Yeah.
All right. Well, here's what you can do. Kind of bring us up to date. Where do we stand with COVID now at the end of 2023, looking at 2024? This calling it the COVID-19 is starting to get kind of ancient sounding.
Yeah.
And I think we've
2019. Boy, that was the day. Yeah.
We've all started thinking about it in the past. Where are we?
Yeah, isn't it weird that just like in your introduction, COVID is a thing that you run into on Facebook that maybe you didn't want to run into, that you remember from back in the day. Yeah. And there it is, coming back again. I think those stats may have been cumulative up to this point, but yeah, it's done a lot of damage to the US. And we've had a couple of waves come through here not too long ago. The sort of central and northern states are where the current COVID wave is sitting. It kind of worked its way up from the south and from the edges of the country to the middle. And all of our maps kind of stop at the Canadian border. I wish them the best, but there is some chance that it's going on up there as well now.
I remember there was a time when Australia and New Zealand were really shut down, right? They just shut down their islands and nobody could come or go. And they were doing fine because of that.
They did a good job, yeah.
But right now, as I read yesterday, the Australians are suffering their biggest increase in numbers in the history of COVID, as far as we're all concerned. Are the numbers declining overall? Are they increasing? Are they staying flat, or what?
The numbers are being rather poorly reported. Yeah, it's the main conclusion you can make. We used to have decent counts, right? Remember back in the day when in order to go into work, everybody would just have to get tested. They'd test everybody once a month, something like that. That's about as close as you're going to get to an accurate count of who is and isn't sick. And since then, testing has just gone through the floor. What we rely on are more test positivity numbers. Like when you see a doctor and the doctor thinks, run the panel of tests, including that little COVID stick that you have to, spit on or put some of your nose fluid on. And then you get the number of those that are positive. Whenever it goes up above, let's say 5% or 10%, that's a pretty big wave. And so we've had a couple of those, but we have those without necessarily hearing much about it. And then right after those waves, you do always see the wave of deaths come through. They usually lag by about 3-4 weeks behind the wave of new cases. But that's just how the virus works. It is slow and steady. Yeah. And never good.
As I explained in the introduction of you and your work, you are undoubtedly one of the greater authorities of the COVID virus on the planet. And I'm wondering if you have any indication that people have suggested this, people who don't know anything, right? But that if we just left it alone, it would just wear itself out. It would just eventually go away. Is there any possibility that would be the case?
If we leave it alone, it would do to us what the flu is doing to us now, maybe on a bigger scale, maybe eventually on the same scale. It's just a constant dragging down at the young end and the old end. It's a thing that just wears away a part of humanity and beats us up. It's not good. I mean, humans are resilient, and I really like that about us. But it doesn't have to be bad. Yeah, is what I would say.
And ignoring a problem isn't typically the best way to deal with it.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The CDC hasn't been reporting any vaccination rates since, I don't know, about March, or maybe it was May of this past year. Why is that, do you think, or do you know?
As far as I can tell, it's a mix of politics and probably reporting concerns. A lot of the states are really slowing down the way they report. Part of it, you could say, is just sort of a cost benefit analysis. People are trying to decide, is it worth the money to hire the people to gather the statistics so that we can, know for sure about this thing that we're dealing with, whether we know about it or not. I think early COVID, there's the possibility that we can vaccinate everybody. And when we do that, yeah, it ends one of the peaks that's going on at that point, probably saves a lot of lives. At this point, the vaccines are there, but people are really not interested in taking them, which is very frustrating for me as a scientist. Yeah, when you know the things work. And so it's a question of, if you're not going to solve the problem, why track the problem? I mean, I can imagine a politician's brain working that way, and I get it, but yeah, it's really frustrating because we lose all our intelligence. We lose our ability to predict when we lose our ability to know what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You just
models
said
need data.
you just said something that brought up a major question for me, and that is the vaccines work. And I've had 4 of them, I think, if I haven't lost track.
That's good.
I
Yeah.
was I you know I was dedicated to staying up to date. I'm getting older, and didn't want to get sick. But here's the thing, I recently had, and a lot of people watching or listening to this know, I recently had a health scare where I passed out, and I spent a night in the hospital after just dropping to the ground for no reason at all. And after 3 months of testing and scanning by neurologists and cardiologists, and they said they can't find anything wrong. This sort of thing just happens once in a while. They really don't know what happened to me. Within the past week, I saw 2 different doctors that were totally unrelated to my case here, but I told them about it, and they both said independently, they both said, "Have you gotten the COVID vaccine booster?" I said, "Yes." They said, "Well, there you go. That's the problem." And it just floored me. These are doctors. I mean, I could understand that doctors are people too, and they get their information, a lot of information, the same way we do. But it surprised me to hear them say this. These are the same people that won't bother to tell me I'm fat anymore because it's just
That
too.
would hurt your feelings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine too, frankly. Yeah. Hope my doctor's listening. Yeah.
So anyway, that made me think. I go, well, there's a person of medicine here telling me that
Yeah.
I shouldn't be getting
And
any more boosters.
you run into this in a lot of fields, even scientists. But yeah, the problem with med school is that it's over. And when it's done, they say you're a doctor. And at that point, there's no requirement that you learn another thing. Same for scientists. There are people that have stopped learning at the end of their PhD, and it shows. Yeah. At least to people that know what they're doing. And that's a shame, and it's easy to get busy, but boy, that's kind of disheartening to see. I don't think the stuff that they're saying is based on any sort of reliable science. The big studies, the best studies, all show the opposite. That yeah, you may have a side effect. It'll last about 24 hours. Nothing bad will happen. And from that point, you've got nice immunity that's going to last for months. Just a nice little shield for the rest of your body so you can go about your business.
So the story that you're telling right now hasn't really changed since the beginning of the vaccinations. It goes back to,
No.
this is helpful. It's not going to hurt you. And I was going to ask you about, are we after several years now, are we discovering any side effects or any long-term effects from the vaccines itself, or even from the virus itself? Is there, what is long COVID all about?
Ooh, long COVID is a lot. It's this sort of wrapper that people put everything inside. Some of that is if like one in I think it's 1 in 10 people. If they get the virus, they're going to hold on to it for more than a month, possibly several months. And that is long, literal COVID. They also, there's this sort of suite of medical problems that occur afterward where you'll have sort of tightness in your chest, difficulty breathing, possible damage to your heart if you get excited or try to do something, possible other organ damage. There's a good bit of brain damage. And those are all things that show up in weird ways, like possibly even a little unpredictably. But those are also lumped under long COVID, which is like the long-term effects of having had COVID, a while ago. We've got a much better handle on the correlates of long COVID, like the things that are there when you get long COVID, which are probably similar to the causes, although everybody's heard, causation is not correlation, et cetera. But those tend to be little bits of autoimmunity. Like if you have already certain antibodies, certain white blood cells that are attacking you at a very minor level, but in specific ways, then when COVID comes in, that really increases the risk that you'll end up with long-term effects or just a long infection. It's both ineffective and more dangerous, like destructive to the body. Yeah, in that case.
Well, now what about the opposite? There are some of us, I'm one of them, and my wife is another, and she's out in public all the time. She works in a retail environment that is filled with women that are looking for products and instruction and so forth. And she has not gotten COVID, and I have not gotten COVID, and yet I know number of people who have had it multiple times. Why is that? Are some of us just lucky, or are we actually, uh,
We
immune?
know with other diseases that there are certain sets of like versions of a gene, like genotypes, that will be really resistant, that will make a very fast response and basically won't get sick or will have a much greater chance of survival. They've done these studies with things like Ebola and the original SARS. The studies are slow, and there are some clues as to what those little correlates of protection may be in people now, but we're not really sure. And I can't say, hey, go get this gene test, and yeah, you'll find out if you have superpowers. For now, you're living a charmed life. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's good for you and your wife, and probably if one of you gets it, the other will as well. But as long as you're both, yeah, doing so well, yeah, congratulations. That's really great.
All right, what about the modern boosters now? The most current boosters, these are effective for the COVID that's out there, right? I mean,
That's right.
if you're sitting on a booster that you got 3 years ago, it's probably not doing anything for you at all.
No, if you're sitting on a booster you got 6 months ago, it's probably not doing much for you. Yeah.
Ah,
The antibodies will be gone. Those are the shield that stops you from getting infected. The white blood cells that'll sort of hunt the virus down after it's made you sick to sort of shorten the duration, those last longer. A year or two is probably pretty reasonable. But yeah, if it's been 3 years, there is there are not many defenses. Your gates are open and your drawbridge is down, and if the virus comes in, that's a thing that could be pretty bad. But yeah, the new vaccines work really well against all the variants that are here. We've driven all the so we've vaccinated against two different groups of strains. Both of those have been driven to extinction. And you could say it's the vaccination, you could say it's the virus changing, but they are gone. Yeah. And the timing lines up such that it's probably the vaccine more than anything else. The new vaccine, I wish more people would take it because it's the only one that's effective at all against the strains that are out there. These things derived from the old XBB strain from like a year ago. And it was slow getting this updated vaccine, but yeah, it's worth it, definitely.
Well, what I'm wondering about too, and we've seen this with other diseases, other rare afflictions that people have. There are medications for them, but they cost thousands of dollars because the pharmacological groups just aren't bothering to invest in something that doesn't have a decent profit return. And I'm wondering if that's going to happen with this too, because people aren't getting their shots. And
Yeah,
by
and
the
I
way,
don't.
those shots have been, for the most part, as far as I know, free, right?
That's it. They still are, but there is pushback, definitely at the national level against that, and so it's a real question of how long that will be the case. Yeah, definitely worth getting it sooner rather than later, if that's what you're worried about. Yeah. What was the rest of the question?
It was about the profit
Oh yeah, yeah.
incentive for the.
Yeah, we have seen like Moderna has really scaled back, and they've mostly put their resources into other vaccines. You still got Pfizer pretty heavily in the COVID-19 game, although they are developing other stuff. So you've got shifted focus onto RSV, shifted focus onto can we make mRNA vaccines against cancer and a boatload of other diseases? To which the answer is yeah, maybe, yeah, worth trying for sure. So I want to make sure we don't take our eyes off the prize, but yeah, it does seem to have shifted away from for-profit science. Now, there's still the regular kind of science, and people are still doing some really cool experiments, messing with the virus in ways that interrupt its ability to actually cause disease. And if we had the same kind of financial backing behind some of these ideas, I think they're really different. They could be as successful or more successful than what we've got with the mRNA vaccines. And since they're different types of vaccines, I think you would see a different sort of side effect profile.
Hmm.
And if that's the thing that's keeping people, holding them back, that seems worth pursuing. But yeah, like everything, it's a cost benefit analysis. And the people in Congress, most of them do not have advanced degrees in biology or biotechnology. Yeah, I would say.
The interesting read I've gotten from talking to people and on social media for what's it been almost 5 years now since COVID first came out, is I think people are just dismissive of it. They're going, well, if I get it, I get it. Um, I mean, dude, do you have an idea how many people have died from that?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
if I die, I die. You get a lot of that. It's just human nature, and we've survived this long, and I'm not going to do anything else the government tells me to do. I don't trust the doctors or the scientists. They're all in the pockets of big
Yeah.
pharma.
You're not going to drive on government roads. You're not going to use that, FDA sanctioned milk. You're going to, whatever, get your own off the street corner. Yeah, right. I don't know. People that say that are very selective with which parts of the government they're willing to contend, I would say.
All right, just touch real quickly, and we'll let you go on the research that you're involved with right now. Are you still highly focused on COVID? Are you doing other things? And is there something else out there on the radar that you haven't mentioned to us that we should be horrified about?
You should never be horrified about viruses. They're just like animals. Think of a tiger, think of a crocodile. You wouldn't want to put a crocodile pit in your backyard because you know something bad would happen. You wouldn't want a tiger living in the house with you, although I like house cats. But you go to the zoo to see them because they're beautiful, they're fascinating, they work a little differently than the other things that are around. And that's how I feel about viruses. There are so many new ones we're discovering, so many things similar to coronaviruses, and they're all over the place. They're in all of these fish. Oh my goodness, aquarium fish they're a great story. There's a paper that we've got coming out. Some of these fish, like we put different kinds together in a tank because we think it looks really pretty, but they each have their own viruses. And then we end up getting these things, they don't get filtered out or anything. It's just constant exposure to other viruses. And so we get them jumping all over the place. There's one fish that has 4 different kinds of virus in its brain alone that we've managed to pull out. Yeah, just ridiculous sorts of things like that. And there's a lot going on out there in the world. And because viruses are so small, you're not going to see them and you won't notice necessarily unless you look for it until something like COVID-19 happens. And then everybody says, whoa, where'd that come from? But yeah, we're building up the rest of the story, rounding out the coronavirus cinematic universe over here. I'm just trying to figure out what these things are, where they come from, how they work, and just what makes them tick.
And there are people that are, you explained to me earlier, there are people who are actually involved in making, if not eradicating the virus and all of its new permutations, at least making them totally ineffective in attacking
Yeah,
the human system, right?
ineffective, so you can use them as vaccines. Yeah, yeah.
All
These
right.
are the live vaccines that everybody says they want and may actually finally come. The idea is very similar to bullying. You find something that the virus likes, something that it needs, then you just break it right there in front of it. You set it up to fail. You put it in positions it does not want to be in. And there are so many cool ways to recode this thing. So it's still mostly the virus, but it's just completely unable to evolve into anything that can be, like COVID-19. Yeah, a lot of cool ideas out there. We got to see which ones actually make it through into the clinic and into the real world. But the journals are a very interesting place to be right now.
If you weren't so smart and working on such good things, I would ask that you consider taking up a job on TV or doing some sort of presentation on a regular basis on YouTube,
We've got to
because
build Nye. That's
you
fine. Yeah.
you are so charming and so delightful to listen to. You can tell us the worst, the most horrifying things that you've got, and I still just get a kick out of watching you and listening to you. You're a very warm guy, as well as being very intelligent and scientifically minded. I'm able to follow most of what you say, and that's why I've always enjoyed talking with you so much from time to time over the last few years, and I hope we do it again.
Hey, I'd be happy to do that. And if it's something other than COVID, because COVID is magically gone from the world, that's going to be great too.
Dr. Ben, thank you. Have a great day. Merry Christmas.
Always happy to be here and very nice to hear you say such nice things. I'm going to send this to my mother. She loves that sort of stuff. Yeah, thanks very much.
All right.